Welcome into the 49er Access podcast. My name is Sterling Bennett, and today we are going to react to San Francisco 49er free agency in the middle of day number 2. They made a handful of signings, made a handful of roster moves to restructures, to extensions. A bunch of things have happened and occurred for the San Francisco 49ers. Drop those comments down below. I will get to every single one of them. And without further ado, let's dive into what the San Francisco 49ers have done so far through free agency. They did not get Danielle Hunter. They did not get Christian Wilkins. Truly no big, flashy names on the behalf of the San Francisco 49ers. Saw a handful of players depart the past couple days. Charlie Woerner, 3 years, $12 million to the Falcons in day one. Along with him was Javon Kinlaw going to the Jets. Sam Darnold going to the Vikings, 1 year, $10 million. Clelin Ferrell signed with the Commanders this morning. And they also made moves to re-sign quarterback Brandon Allen and extend George Odum to 2 years, $10 million. Essentially getting rid of the 2 void years already in his contract, which could help them down the road. They also placed a second-round tender on Juwan Jennings, essentially signing him to 1 year, but giving them the option to work out a better deal to help them and himself in the meantime. But look at the additions San Francisco made. Brandon Allen's back. Great. He was always going to be this team's quarterback too. They lost some players, none of them truly key. The big one, obviously, is Arik Armstead. Everyone's like, what's going on with Armstead? They asked Juice to take a pay cut as well. Arik Armstead cannot or will not be officially cut until tomorrow because that's when the June 1st cuts or post-June 1st cuts can be official. That being said, Diana Rossini today on KNBR mentioned that there's an outside chance that Armstead stays in San Francisco. They can work some things out. I am someone who believes, albeit maybe a 1% chance, he does indeed take that pay cut. It's a possibility. It's just not very likely. That being said, let's dive into the additions the San Francisco 49ers have made. Let's talk about the first one that was made today, day number 2 of free agency. They signed defense a 2-year, $10 million deal. Now, we have no idea how this deal is structured or what the guarantees or signing bonuses may or may not be. All I know is that when you lose a player like Javon Kinlaw, who is constantly injured for 3 of his first 4 seasons in San Francisco, and was going to make or had made around $2 plus $5 million each season he was a Niner. You then signed Jordan Elliott, who has been consistently healthy for the Browns. No, he's not going to be a starter, but he's a cheap depth option that's going to be there with Hargrave, will probably be your 3rd defensive tackle if and hopefully when they retain Kevin Givens. He's going to be in the rotation. People were complaining, that's not DJ Reader, that's not insert star defensive tackle here, when in fact Jordan Elliott, a former 3rd-round pick who started for the Browns the past 2 years, has 57 tackles in 2 seasons, 8 tackle for losses, 6 quarterback hits, and 4.5 sacks. Now, those are box score numbers. Is that the end-all be-all? End-all be-all? No. In fact, PFF borderline hates Jordan Elliott. That being said, when you're paying for a player that has an average annual salary of $5 million, which ranks 36th amongst defensive tackles, to be your 3rd, maybe even your 4th defensive lineman, that's not that bad. That's a fine deal. He's someone you can rely on. He's not going to miss games. He will be healthy. Whereas, say you brought back Javon Kinlaw, and he was going to be the guy once you released Arik Armstead. There was no promise Kinlaw makes it through a week of practice. I don't care how healthy he was last year. There's no promise Kinlaw was going to be healthy this year. or you have Elliott for $5 million each year. You also have someone that you watched your run defense rank 26th in football. Yikes. He ranked 6th in the NFL in run stop win rate amongst defensive tackles. Sure, it isn't a big splashy name. You'd rather have Kinlaw and Armstead and Givens back in the fray as your centerpieces amongst your ideal rotation, sure. But Jordan Elliott for $5 million a year, what if that guarantee is like 2 mil, 3 mil, and there's nothing tied to him over the course of that contract? This is a good deal. A good, veteran, cheap, healthy option for San Francisco. We'll dive into health more with the edge rushers because, oh my goodness, I have heard too many people complaining about Leonard Floyd. Ew. Yetur Gross-Matos, I don't even know who that is. A bunch of bargain bin, C- people. And we'll dive into why I think San Francisco improved this year. It sounds crazy. Stick with me. I will explain what type mean in a second. I do want to get to some comments right now, though, before we dive into Floyd and Yetur Gross-Matos. Fluffy Ninja, a show regular here, says, I am starting to fear that Kyle Shanahan is starting to lose the locker room. We are not making additions to the O-line. Ayuk has a bit of an attitude, and the O-line is depressing. Okay, Fluffy. You've watched many of these shows. You commented on many of them. What have I said? And look, I'm no expert here, but you tuned in for a reason, right? You care about this team like I do. I have said from the beginning of free agency, pre-free agency, I thought the plan was going to be build the defense through vets, through depth, whatever it may have been in free agency on the defensive side of the football. This draft class has amazing receivers, has good offensive linemen. You can find nickel cornerbacks if you want to add somebody to help Lenore and Mooney Ward. You can find interior centers and guards nearly throughout the entirety of the draft. You can find your offensive pieces like the offensive line you may want. They still have pick 31. They have 11 draft picks this year. There's still plenty of time. It's day 2 of free agency. I know we all wanted Danielle Hunter, and Christian Wilkins was listed as a potential suitor in San Francisco. I get all that stuff. When you hear Armstead's gone, and I get all of that. I do want Niner fans to kind of sit back and be a little patient. It's hard when you watch teams like the Rams are adding guards left and right. The Texans are adding Philadelphia. The Giants got Brian Burns. It's hard to think that way when you're seeing your opposition in the NFC add talent when it seems like you're getting complacent. I do think, Fluffy, once I explain why I think San Francisco may have actually improved, I think you may be on my side on this thing. The Ayuk thing is tough because he's not going to get extended until late summer, if he is at all. I think he does, but there are some who don't. He's not going to get extended until the Eric Armstead $18 million post-June first cut kicks in. Like, they're not going to even talk to him until then, like Kittle, like Woerner, like Debo. Like, that's not going to happen till later. Guys cop attitudes when money is on the line. Ayuk is no different, albeit I have not really seen too much of an attitude from Ayuk. I just think he wants to get paid, and I'm not going to blame him for that. Niner Media says, what's up, Sterling? What's up, Niner Media? Always good to have you in the chat. Hope you're having a wonderful free agency and a Tuesday afternoon. Bobo is everywhere. I see Bobo on every single Niner YouTuber, Twitter, whatever chat it is. They are always in the chats. Chargers to trade Joey to the Niners. I'll just say this. I will explain this towards the end of the show, but there is an avenue where San Francisco does indeed sign and acquire Joey Bosa. Now, I know we talked pre-free agency and my predictions and what I wanted to happen. Joey Bosa was not high on my list, but because of the moves they have made with Floyd and Gross-Matos, I do think San Francisco has their eye towards what the Chargers may or may not do this Friday, which could include, like Cheryl Bosa might want, her 2 sons playing together in the same place. She don't have to go to SoFi and Levi's and back and forth. She can have the exact same jersey, just put the numbers in half and call it a day. Like, For Cheryl Bosa, it's a money-saving issue for her. It's one game a week she has to deal with. But I do think there is an avenue for San Francisco to acquire, whether it's Khalil Mack or maybe it is Joey Bosa. Bobo again here does say, as for the offensive line, Kyle Shanahan doesn't mind Brock Purdy running for his life. Okay. This, along with Fluffy Ninja's comments about the offensive line, Kyle losing the locker room. Kyle is not losing the locker room. If Armstead goes, okay, it's one person. If Juszczyk goes, then we're having these tough conversations that were alluded to by Mike Silver of like, hey, like, this team is going to have a roster turnover at some point, whether it's Debo, Armstead, Juszczyk. Eventually, the stars of this team are going to have to either take a pay cut, get restructured, or just say goodbye. That is just the path the NFL has. You get 2, 3, 4, 5 years with your star players. After that, you got to say sayonara. But when it comes to the offensive line, I know Niner fans are watching, again, teams like the Rams, Panthers are adding offensive linemen. It does feel like that the Niners offensive line as it is now, Trent Williams, Aaron Banks, Jake Brendel, Spencer Burford, and Colton McKivitz. It feels like that's a downgrade. Again, I want to remind you, Robert Hunt, that was connected to the Niners for almost the entirety of the offseason post Super Bowl, right? Well, that's a good target for San Francisco. He got $100 million. San Francisco's not going to pay $100 million for anybody that's not a cornerstone left tackle on the offensive line. In fact, I believe since Kyle Shanahan has got here, they have only retained one first-round draft pick, which a second could be Ayuk, but one so far since Shanahan didn't say, Reuben Foster didn't say for a second contract. It's been Nick Bosa, McGlinchey's gone, Kinlaw's now gone. Ayuk could be the second Niner first-round pick under Kyle Shanahan to be retained and stay for a second contract. That, to me, screams they do not value in regards to being a big star on the offensive line. We're not going to pay big money when we can have a second-round pick, a veteran center for cheap and Brendel. We don't mind paying Trent. He's a Hall of Famer. But we're not going to pay an offensive lineman $100 million. 80, $68 million like the Rams and Panthers did. No way. That's not going to happen. What is going to happen is you bring back John Feliciano, who I think many of us do like, cheaper guard, makes some sense, fits in well, had played pretty well towards the end of the season. You draft a right tackle in the first round, pick number 31, or if you want to get the defensive tackle across from Hargrave, go get your guy. Byron Murphy, Sweat from Texas, Chris Jenkins from Michigan. You want to find your interior rusher, that's fine. But you have to make sure one of your first two picks, if you are not trading up in that second round to find your right tackle, you have to make sure you can get him. They can easily fill the right tackle position. And we're sitting back in April saying, oh, wow, if I was just patient, yeah, they got cheaper. Yeah, it wasn't the move I wanted to make, but they get their right tackle and they'll find their right guard. Their offensive line is going to be okay. Bring back Feliciano, McKivitz becomes your swing tackle, bing, bang, boom. We're sitting back in April saying, man, this team looks ready to go for a round 3, maybe against Kansas City. Now, that's far ahead. We'll get there when we get there. We have no idea what this team's going to look like exactly. But I think Bobo here again has a good sentiment many Niner fans believe is the case. Bobo would give the offseason so far a C. A C. So you've watched Kinlaw leave, which I think is kind of a take it or leave it, whatever. You watch Darnold leave for $10 million. Okay, we're not paying you that. The players that have departed so far, the only one I would have wanted to bring back would have been Clelin Ferrell. And no offense to Ferrell, Yetur Gross-Matos is eerily similar to him, not in how he plays. And while I do think San Francisco needs to bring in a run-defending edge rusher, you have to set those edges. There's plenty of time to find veteran players elsewhere. If it is a Joey Bosa, who knows? or the draft. Again, they are going to add potentially 11 players in the draft. Like, this roster is far from finished, so I get you want to say so far it's a C, but realistically, let's say they add Floyd, Matos, and they add like they already have Elliott, and they draft some dogs in the draft, which is tough to do, but we've seen it before. They were sitting back as a B plus, it's a B off season. Great, you got younger already, and I can say in a second here, I think they've gotten better. I'll explain here though in a second. Eric Cardi asks on Facebook, is there any more restructures coming, you think? Eric, it's a good question because, like the George Odum contract, they got rid of potentially 2 of his void years. But look at his contract he had pre-extension. He had this year, 1 year under contract, and 2 void years. They extended him for 2 years, and they're going to work in, hopefully, those void years into that extension, getting rid of the voids they had. So, bang. You eliminate essentially free money away from the roster. Then there's Mooney Ward. Mooney Ward, I think, is 27, not he's 28 years old, had the best year of his career. I think you extend Mooney Ward, Javarius Ward, keep your number 1 corner under contract for the next 3-4 seasons until he's 31, 32 years old. You can save money on the cap this year. Keep building up your rollover cap when you have players like Deebo Samuel, who in a year you have to make a decision on, in a year or so when you have to pay Brock Purdy. Like, San Francisco can continue to kick that cap or the can down the line in terms of contracts, but this past year, they want that rollover money. Hence why they're going to cut, at least it seems like, Eric Armstead post June 1st. They want to build up that cap, go into the year with $20+ million. That way, they can either sign somebody, trade somebody, or take it over into next offseason when they have to make even more roster-altering decisions, right? So I think Odom made sense. McKivitz already got extended for another year. Mooney Ward, I think, is the big one that you want to extend him now. Maybe they talk to Hufanga. I think it's kind of an outside chance. I would not expect Hufanga, but maybe if they want to extend a player early off an injury, I wouldn't advise that for Hufanga himself. But if they feel like, hey, we can get you for cheaper now, I could see that being the case for San Francisco, but I'm not even sure they can make that move yet via the contract issues. But I would say Mooney Ward is the number 1 prime factor for an extension in the next couple of weeks to create some more cap flow for them this year. But okay, let's dive back into free agency, what they've done so far. The Jordan Elliott move, I think, is a good depth piece. If you compare him with Kevin Givens and a rookie, then you have, 3-4 guys in there you like a lot. You have already under contract. Clea Davis is still there. Unfortunately, DJ Jones is likely not going to be released by the Broncos. That's a bummer. But now you have to pivot. I don't know if San Francisco is banking on that. They were certainly monitoring it, but you have to pivot. Hence why you get Elliott. You almost get yourself a baseline of production and you work yourself up from there. That, I think, was the Elliott move. Hey, this is like the bottom of the barrel we're going to go. Let's get better from there. But moving into yesterday, when the first move they made, I guess second technically, but the first big addition they made to the roster was signing edge rusher Leonard Floyd to a 2-year, $20 million contract worth up to $24 million. Last year for the Buffalo Bills, Floyd tallied 10.5 sacks, 41 pressures, with an 11.3 pressure rate, again, for the Buffalo Bills. In the past 4 seasons, has totaled, he had 10.5 sacks in 2020. He had 9.5 sacks in 2021, 9 sacks in 2022, and 10.5 sacks in 2023. So if you're looking for the epitome of consistency in the sack box score and the sack numbers, his name is Leonard Floyd. When this signing occurred, there was still optimism they were going to make a bigger move. But there was also this kind of like, okay, that's the big swing they're going to take. Who is the depth piece they're going to add alongside that? People scoffed at this move a lot. I don't understand that when, like, San Francisco has struggled to add that number two bona fide, just not a superstar, not an elite player, just a consistent, productive, durable player opposite Nick Bosa. That was supposed to be D Ford. It wasn't. That was kind of supposed to be Samson Ebukam. He was healthy. He just wasn't ultra productive. He was in that mixture with Arden Key and Charles Omenihu. He just wasn't that number two guy. He was a number 3 or 4 in a good mixture of players. Then it was Drake Jackson was a rookie or second-year player last year and just didn't, he got hurt, didn't play well. Clelin Ferrell was brought in to be that, Chris Kocurek rescue me kind of player. Then last year they acquired Chase Young, Randy Gregory, and I think that set up Niner fans set their expectations up too high as to what they were going to do. And San Francisco themselves said that Chase Young was a disappointment, that Randy Gregory was not that good. So I still think San Francisco is looking for productive, consistent gameplay. And I think that actually is Leonard Floyd. Is he an elite edge rusher? No. In fact, he, I believe, is, in terms of average annual value, the lowest paid edge rusher of like the top 5 guys signed so far. He's getting less than Grenard and Burns. Like Brian Burns got $30 million. That's 4 less than Nick Bosa. So Burns got 30. I think Christian Wilkins got 27. Grenard got like 19. Huff got 17. Za'Darius Smith got like 13 or 12, whatever it was. And then at the bottom is Leonard Floyd. And he's 31 years old. He's older. And I get it wasn't this like Niner fans wanted those big name guys. But who they were losing, their cap situation, I don't think they want to exactly keep pushing that can down the road, but they do want to be competitive. Like this feels more like 2021 when they acquired Omenihu via trade, signed Ebukam, and brought other people in to be depth pieces around them. It feels more like that. But I do think there is more production in Leonard Floyd than, let's say, Ebukam a couple years ago. So let's dive into why I think, like, for the people scoffing at the Leonard Floyd trade or signing, like, listen to these stats. And it's a reason why I think they actually improved upon where they started. So when we dive into this, why I think they got better, I'm not talking about where they ended last season. Because here's my theory. Where San Francisco started last season, okay, when they walked into OTAs and training camp and minicamp and the regular season, their defensive end group, not counting Hargrave or Armstead or the interior guys, just the edge rushers. It was Nick Bosa, Drake Jackson, Clelin Ferrell, Austin Bryant, Kerry Hyder, and Robert Beal Jr. Those last 3 guys, one of them didn't make the team. Austin Bryant was a practice squad elevation, I think, twice, maybe this year. And Beal Jr. was hurt the majority of the season. They came into the season with nobody opposite Nick Bosa. Ferrell was a Raiders castaway. Drake Jackson was an unproven hope your body can hold up, and it didn't eventually kind of player. They came in with a bunch of unknowns and then Nick Bosa. And I get they spent on Hargrave and they had Armstead. No one's ignoring that. Just focus on the edge rushers. It was Nick Bosa and literally a bunch of unproven borderline roster players, Jackson and Ferrell. That's all it was. They came in with 81.5 career sacks. And are sacks everything? No, they're not, but just stick with me here. Look at what they've already done this year. Floyd. They signed Yetur Gross-Matos, okay? So they're going to go into camp, and this is not including eventual draft prospects, maybe more edge rushers they bring in free agency for cheap. Who knows? This is an unfinished product as of now. They're going to go into next year with Nick Bosa, Leonard Floyd, Drake Jackson, Gross-Matos, Austin Bryant still, and Robert Beal Jr., which They are going to now have, instead of 81.5 sacks, they're going to walk into training camp as of now, pre-draft, with 145 sacks to their name. That is what you call an upgrade as to where you started. And what they've done, if they do indeed cut Eric Armstead, they get the $18 million post June 1st. They extend Brandon Ayuk, likely freeing up roughly $7 to $8 million in a contract extension. They could walk into OTAs, minicamp, the regular season like they want to do with like $20-ish million, if not more than that, depending on who they sign, who they move, who they restructure. They've set themselves up for a better start to last season already compared to the Farrells and Jacksons and Hyders and Bills. Where they're at now is already a better start to last season, and they've set themselves up just like last season if they're in the middle of a run and let's say the edge rushing group is falling apart, they need to go add somewhere, they can go acquire players like a Chase Young or a Gregory. They will still have that cap flexibility to use a third or fourth round comp pick on additions. When you walk into this, you're saying, wow, we are more prepared to face a season from week one than we were last year. Don't look at it from, they lost Chase Young and they lost Gregory. They're going to lose Armstead. I get that. Don't look at it from that way. It's hard not to. This team was a couple of plays away from Super Bowl champions. And many of you, including myself, will say, if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. The difference is I think they've gotten better from the aspect of setting themselves up for success with the ability to add if they need to during the season, like they did last year. I think right now they have actually made themselves better from the jump than they were last season. Excuse me. So I do think Leonard Floyd's signing, Yetur Gross-Matos, like I think they have set themselves up for instant week one success with the same ability. If the going gets tough or guys get hurt, or you just sit back and say, hey, like guys are getting banged up, guys aren't producing like they're supposed to, let's go buy a Gregory. Let's go buy a Chase Young level player. Like, or let's say they aren't done yet and they sign a Joey Bosa. Like, there are many moves to still be made. And as of right now, pre any extra signings, pre-draft, pre-day 3 of free agency, day 2 isn't even over yet. I'm sitting back and saying, hey, I know you're going to lose Chase Young. Gregory's going to be gone. But Leonard Floyd and Yetur Gross-Matos, I mean, they're already more accomplished than what you walked into last year with, and you added 2 pieces alongside them. Imagine doing the same thing this season. Like, you've gone from Drake Jackson and Clelin Ferrell to Leonard Floyd and Yetur Gross-Matos as your 2 and 3 guys. That's pretty darn good compared to what it was last year. But I want to dive into Floyd more specifically. Many people will scoff at Floyd because he isn't, Danielle Hunter. He's not this young, spry, speedy edge rusher. It's harder for him, or I'll rephrase that. He's not someone who's likely going to win on one-on-ones. He's not someone who's going to, blow by somebody and win against a left tackle or right tackle. What he is, though, he's a high motor player who's always near the football. Unlike Chase Young, who had just effort issues for a lot of the season. So much they questioned him the entire week leading into the Super Bowl. Like, there's a reason why Chase Young's not coming back. The effort is part of that. You know his effort you're not going to question? Leonard Floyd's. He hasn't missed a game in 6 years. You know who got hurt last year? Clelin Ferrell, Eric Armstead, and Drake Jackson. Like, there's durability. Your best ability is your availability. They did not have availability last year. They do, from what the history may show, do now opposite Nick Bosa. There's not going to be this, defensive edge number 2 carousel. And Nick Bosa's like, can you find me someone that can actually play every single day? Like, I feel bad for Bosa in a way. He's had this plethora of plug-and-play players and failures of big signings like D Ford, whereas if you give him Leonard Floyd, where Floyd's played with Aaron Darnold, Ed Oliver, Von Miller, like, he's played with really good players next to him, and when you do that, when you pair him with said players, he's going to perform at a higher level. Now he has Bosa and Hargrave, an unknown DT2. Who knows who could that be? And he's going to be able to perform at a higher level than what he like Bryce Huff for Philadelphia. He's a pass rushing specialist. He can't run defend as of now. He's too young. There's no tape to prove, hey, it's in there somewhere. You're going to have it. Leonard Floyd makes a lot of sense if you are San Francisco. I do want to dive into comparing him to players kind of in the same group as him. So Leonard Floyd is 31 years old, signed a 2-year, $20 million contract, okay? Za'Darius Smith, who I think we would all say is probably a better edge rusher, 2 years, $23.5 million. And Randy Gregory, 31 years old, who was here last year, remains unsigned. Leonard Floyd played 54% snap count last year for Buffalo. Za'Darius Smith played 55.1% for Cleveland. Gregory played 38.6% between Denver and San Francisco. In fact, Gregory got benched in Denver. They are crazy out there. They have a ton of issues. And then he played so poorly in San Francisco, they felt the need to still add with Chase Young after they already acquired Gregory. Okay? Leonard Floyd, 10.5 sacks last year. Za'Darius Smith, 5.5 sacks last year. Randy Gregory, 3.5 sacks last year. Do you not see the instant improvement in that category? Okay, sacks aren't everything. Leonard Floyd had 41 pressures last year. Za'Darius Smith had 60 pressures. Randy Gregory had 23 pressures. Like, there is improvement from what was in that building even towards the end of last season. Gregory was playing in the Super Bowl for this team. He was atrocious. Floyd had an 11.3 pressure rate. Za'Darius Smith had a 16.5 pressure rate. Gregory, 9.4. No one is saying Floyd is this world-beating, going to be elite edge rusher. But it's an improvement from the jump of last year, and it's already improving upon your number 3 edge rusher last season as well. Like, if you cannot see that's an improvement, I do not know what to tell you. There's not going to be effort issues. No one's saying Floyd is going to be or has this insane high potential. Jonathan Grenard had that. I get that. He got big money from Minnesota. We all wanted Danielle Hunter. He got the bank rolled up to his house for Houston. It's making $10 million a year. In fact, of these three players, Gregory may not get signed at all, and Floyd's making $3.5 million less than Smith did because he had 19 less pressures and a 5.2% less pressure rate. It's a bargain $10 million deal for 1 year, essentially, if you look at it that way, for a player that has been durable, hasn't missed a game in 6 years, when he's played against or with elite-level players around him, has produced double-digit sacks, an okay pressure rate, but you put him with Chris Kocurek? I mean, don't you bring in players in San Francisco and expect them to get better? That was Ebukam. That was Amenahue. That was Arden Key. That was Clellan Ferrell. Who isn't to say those numbers don't get better? Let's say he has 10.5 sacks next year. Fine, great. We'll take that. In fact, I don't think anybody opposite Nick Bosa has had 10.5 sacks. Not D Ford, not Ferrell, not Jackson, not Chase Young. In fact, Chase Young got worse here than he was in Washington. Like, people were, oh, this isn't the guy I wanted. Yeah, maybe that's the reason why they went and got him. He was the guy they might need. He's durable. There's consistency. And again, I understand he wasn't the guy. He isn't a flashy name. He's been around forever. He knows the system. He's played under Brandon Staley. I believe he was with the Rams when they won the Super Bowl. I mean, this is not going to be an unfamiliar, I don't know how to play here kind of style for him. And with Chris Kocurek in that building, I mean, shouldn't we all expect production to go up? It's happened with almost everybody they've signed. The difference is they got him for 2 years, not one. They got him locked in for 2 years. If he plays well, and let's say he's 32 next year, and you're like, man, we got a 10.5 sack player that has a 15% pressure rate. And it's all wishful thinking, sure, but it's not as if Leonard Floyd's stats last year are going to be his stats this coming season. In fact, they should get better under this coaching staff because that's been the case for everybody that's come in under Chris Kocurek. In the same, again, Floyd isn't elite. We know this. But we watched Eric Armstead, Drake Jackson, Clelin Ferrell miss 19 combined games last year. Floyd hasn't missed a game in 6 seasons. And some of those seasons include playoffs. And he's had 9+ sacks in 4 of those 6 seasons. I know it's hard to be excited when you're losing big name players like Chase Young, like Armstead. You're seeing these top dollar guys go elsewhere. A lot of them in the NFC, all that. It's hard to sit back and say, man, we are not essentially, or we're not getting better. We're just kind of floundering. I want you to actually look at this and say, you know what? It may not be a flashy name, but it could be a productive name. That is Leonard Floyd. Don't sit back and say, Leonard Floyd, he's the cheapest edge rushing option, and he might be the most productive of the 7 that got signed, not named Danielle Hunter. Jonathan Grenard missed 19 games in 4 seasons. Last year was his first healthy season. Now, he's a young guy. He can be healthy the rest of his career. Good for him. Hope he stays healthy. There's no promise there. Injuries have haunted him, hence why he didn't get the bag until this year. Bryce Huff has had one excellent season. He's going to be a pass rushing specialist. That may not work out. He's had one good season. Danielle Hunter is the guaranteed hit. Za'Darius Smith is certainly up there. He's also been injured at times. Leonard Floyd has been, I think, one of the most consistent, durable, and productive edge rushers on the market. That's what San Francisco wanted. They don't want to go into a year saying, oh, Drake Jackson got hurt, Clelin Ferrell got hurt. Now we have to go and acquire other pieces or rely on Robert Beal Jr. and an unproven rookie and Austin Bryant. They want to come in saying this thing is set and we only want to add to it alongside Floyd and Gross-Matos. And mainly Floyd. This is a good move for San Francisco. Let's move into the Yetur Gross-Matos deal. 2 years, $18 million. And yes, his name is not Yetur. It is Yetur. So Yetur Gross-Matos. Former second-round pick. He's only 26 years old. He was with the Panthers since 2020. Coming off the best year of his career, 4.5 sacks, 36 tackles, 19 pressures, and 7 tackle for losses. Think of it as this. If Floyd is the durable, kind of guaranteed hit almost, Matos is the more expensive version of Arden Key, of Amenahue, of your Clelin Ferrells, right? That's all he is. And I think like Chris Kocurek, if there is a young, moldable player that you want to say, here, take this man, wipe off the dirt, and turn this piece of poo into gold. Now, Matos ain't a piece of poo. It's just an analogy here. But I do think you can turn him into gold. I do think there is this inside-outside flexibility with him, kind of like Charles Amenahue. On pass rushing downs with Bosa, Hargrave, Gross-Matos, and Leonard Floyd, and we're sitting back saying, man, this is a stout unit. Now, I do think there is a funny kind of, unique thing to Gross-Matos is that, so Carolina has had so many regime changes, right? They had Frank Reich, they had Matt Rule. Like, Gross-Matos has seen the ups and downs of the Panthers. He had his hand in the ground, 5 technique, in the ground, pre-2023, okay? Wasn't very successful, had some injuries, was hurt last year too, a little bit. But off his best season this past year when he was healthy, guess what he was doing? He was standing up. Now, this could be nothing, but it could be something. It's a small little tidbit here I want to tell you. He had his best season with his hands out of the ground. Maybe there is a sense of, hey, Brandon Staley, there's going to be some tinkering with the system. I believe D Ford sometimes rushed standing up. I think that's the case for Gross-Matos. Not all the time. They'll work with him. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm wrong here. But I do think when you see a player succeed doing something different, like going from the 5 tech, putting your hand on the ground, to standing up, and you see them have a clearly defined, more successful lane or season, I don't think you want to change that entirely. I do think it does at least open the door for Floyd also. He also has experience standing up when he rushes. So maybe it's nothing. But I do think that for San Francisco, they'd have added themselves a little bit of pass rushing. I don't want to say specialty, but there is something else there than just go get the quarterback. It's, hey, you can be down, hand on the ground. You can be standing up. Maybe we do see Brandon Staley actually have an impact on the defensive line in certain areas. I don't think it'll be too much, but I do think that San Francisco may be able to tinker with their scheme somewhat to allow a player like Gross-Matos, who had his most successful season standing up, maybe do it again this year. I did also go back last night and listen to the Panthers defensive coordinator, Evero, talk about Gross-Matos. And he talked about, how hard he's worked inside the classroom, how hard he's worked on the field. He's willing to play inside, outside. All of that makes me understand why the Niners wanted him. When you have a teachable, willing to learn player that is like, yes, coach, yes, sir, yes, coach, they'll go in the office, they'll do all the dirty work. It makes you want them. It makes you eager to get them in your building to say, hey, maybe we can make something out of you. When San Francisco acquired Charles Omenihu, that was the same conversation of who is this guy? He's Texans castaway, got him for a 6th-round pick, had him on a 2-year deal. Now, Matos much more expensive than Omenihu was, but I think the traits, not the playing style exactly, but the traits are there, where if he can get healthy, he has an insane arm length. I don't have it in front of me, but if you want to go look up Gross-Matos' bio, his arm length, I mean, he isn't the best edge rusher, isn't the best pass rusher. He's an okay run defender, but he has, his arms are insanely long. Use them. You can use those things like weapons against guards and tackles. Like, you are going to find success in this scheme. Excuse me again. I'm sorry. The cold's got me. Got me getting sick. Man, taking Zycan left and right, coughing everywhere. But Gross-Matos, I do think, adds something to San Francisco they have not had since Omenihu, and they've wanted with Armstead, but he kept saying no. He went edge, he went inside, went outside. Then eventually they said, hey, we cannot keep doing this to him. San Francisco wants to have that versatility, and if they're going to let Armstead go get a player like Gross-Matos that can learn, can flourish. His numbers, just like Floyd's, should go up in a system like this. Like, I know these aren't big names, but I do think we should at least have high hopes of, like, let our coaching staff get these guys in the building and do their work. If there's one coach you trust on this entire coaching staff, I get some of you, including myself, were a little jaded to Kyle Shanahan at times, can't win the big game, getting away from the run. What is one coach? Who is one coach you trust to improve the players under his tutelage? It is Chris Kocurek. Like, I trust Kocurek. I've watched him in person. That guy's freaking nuts. He's awesome. Like, I'm not in the room with him, but my goodness, like, those guys buy in, and if you buy into what he's selling, like Gross-Matos should, in 2 years' time, he'll be 28, a free agent again. That's when he'll get his bag of money if he can come out here and prove to be something worth playing every single day. Like, I think, again, not big names, but these names, Floyd, Gross-Matos, make a lot of sense for the Niners. I know many of you weren't in here earlier when we started, so I'll jump back into a little bit of what Jordan Elliott means to San Francisco. Cheap, vet option. He's the Javon Kinlaw replacement, essentially. $5 million this year. The 36 their starter. I do want to say this, though. There are a couple players that I think could round out this room to make us all say, oh, now I see the vision. Already mentioned Joey Bosa a handful of times. I do think one other name is indeed DJ Reader from the Bengals, free agent this year, torn quad this past year, older player. They're 29 years old, I think. He's someone you bring in for a year, prove it deal, say, hey, come in, try to win. You can reestablish your health, hit the market next year. That makes a lot of sense to me. He's a great run defender. And if you look at Jordan Elliott, the number 6 defensive tackle run stop win rate, PFF might hate him. He may not be a great player for you, but if you can do one thing well, if you can make your money doing one thing well, like, this isn't the best example of this, but take DJ Jones, for example. He was not the best pass rusher in San Francisco. But what was he really good at? And they're different players, mind you. But DJ Jones made his bread and butter as a run-stuffing defensive tackle. Look at players like Hassan Ridgeway when he was here. Run-stuffing defensive tackles, right? You bring these bigger body guys in. And Elliott, I think, has played with the past couple seasons. He's played every game, right? They've had. Like, he's not missed a game. Again, more durability. Not having to pay 7 guys to play one position because everyone else keeps getting hurt. You get healthier guys in there. You can save some money. You can save some cap to add elsewhere to your roster, and hope you walk in the next year saying, hey, we got Purdy under cheap contract. We got CMC, Debo, Ayuk, hopefully he's back. Dwan Jennings is back. Kittle's still here. Like, you walk in the next year saying, hey, might be older, but at some positions we're better. At some we're deeper. Like, San Francisco, I think, has put themselves in a position to not only strengthen depth, but also not need to go sign like 7 different defensive tackles to fill the room for a year. Like, last year wasn't that bad, but 2021, yeah, Kerry Hyder, Ridgeway, Armstead, and you insert like 4 other guys. You're like, holy crap, who are all these guys? Like, we had like Dwumfor, and you had Marlon Davidson. Like, there was so many guys that had to fill in and start for you because no one can stay healthy. And I think now they're trying to avoid, like, hey, like, let's just go out there and let's hopefully, keep our mainstays healthy. Which that leads me back to DJ Reader, because I do think DJ Reader makes a lot of sense. I don't know if he'll come here. I am someone who would vouch for bringing back Kevin Givens. And if you have any questions, put them in the chat. I know Eldon Paul Sr.'s in here asking about Matos. Elliott kind of already dove into that. He said, or she said, if it's a good signing, please put your comments down below. I will get to every single one of them. I promise you, I will not forget you guys. But I think DJ Reader and Kevin Givens make a lot of sense. Like, Kinlaw got a 1-year, $7.25 million deal. Nearly $7 million guaranteed at 6.9. You essentially cut that expenditure and gave half of it to Elliott. And if you can add 2 players like Elliott and then find a starter somewhere, Reader, maybe it's Chris Jenkins, maybe it's a first-round pick, like, you're adding depth, durability, and talent to your room. Whereas, hey, Who's giving Javon Kinlaw $7 million? Like, he can get hurt in practice. I think San Francisco said we have aging players like Armstead. We also have players that have been hurt far too often, like Kinlaw. If we can let them go, we can move off of them and get durable, yet still somewhat equally productive players to replace them, you find yourself in a good position to win a lot of games this year. In a division that's only getting better. I know Seattle's cleaning house, but like the Rams are getting better. They're going to be really good this year. Seattle, give them a year or two. They're going to be knocking on that door of the NFC West. The Cardinals, I would expect them to be better. They have 2 first-round draft picks this year, one inside the top 10. If they get Malik Neighbors, if they somehow get Marvin Harrison, like we're sitting back saying, okay, like you giving Kyler some weapons here. Like the NFC West is only going to get tougher for San Francisco. So I get them trying to insulate themselves with younger, equally productive, and healthier players. Like Eldon M. Paul Sr. says, Kinlaw's got bad knees. Like, yes, Kinlaw has been banged up for 3 of his first 4 seasons in San Francisco. This past year was his first from OTAs, minicamp, didn't miss a practice all the way to the Super Bowl. He was healthy all year long. He made some changes to his workout routine, offseason program. I wish him nothing but the best in New York. That being said, I'm not going to complain about this team getting younger, healthier, and more durable. Like, I think everyone should be sitting back saying, man, if we can average of 22, 23 years old and restock the depth at certain positions, like, I know it's the best case scenario, but imagine leaving the draft with a starting right tackle, with, let's say it's a starting defensive tackle, in a nickel back option if Lenore wants to go outside, and let's say you add a linebacker, some offensive linemen behind those guys. Like, you can add a ton of pieces, a receiver to maybe replace Debo in a year or two. Like, there's so many avenues of success, options, receivers, tackles, linebackers, so many areas San Francisco has to improve upon still, so many holes to fill, but we are in day 2 of free agency. And like I've already said, just taking last year's stats alone, they've added Leonard Floyd, who had 10.5 sacks, and they added Gross-Matos, who had 4.5 sacks. You added 15 sacks on paper to your roster. You've added 60 pressures. You've added a Za'Darius Smith's 16 pressures to your roster in Floyd and Gross-Matos. And yet they're cheaper. They're cheaper. Niner Media here. I missed this. I got to get back to it, though. Floyd is a good edge rusher across from Bosa. Matos can be that rotational guy. 2 years ago, our D-line was so good because we had fresh legs. Boom. That is exactly what I'm saying, is that we have fresh legs. Go back to what it was in 2021 when this team lost the NFC Championship game because Tart dropped the pick and the offense couldn't get it done. Right? They had a 10-point lead. You're at SoFi. It was a crushing loss. Look at that defensive line. You had players like Bosa, Armstead, Amenahu, Ebukam, Arden Key. You had like 6 guys that can go get the quarterback and be valuable to you. Now, again, this team still has to go get that second defensive tackle. They have to round out that room. But if I walk into this year and Drake Jackson's my 4th guy, okay, cool. Great. They need to add still. No one's saying don't add. Add an edge rusher in the draft. Go sign some more vets. I think they will. I think they have, around $15 million in cap space still. Again, we have no idea exactly the number because of the structure of the contracts. But if you have, even if it's $10 million to spend now, spend 5 more of that and go find more depth. Like, I think San Francisco, you get DJ Reader or someone like that, or you'll get Joey Bosa, like, you find yourself sitting back saying, oh, man, like, this team looks eerily similar to 2021 compared to last year when there was no depth, when there was no, like, last year's team had more depth at defensive tackle than edge rusher because everybody got hurt. Whereas 2021 team had a ton of edge rushers. There's more value in edge rushers on this team. Like, when you revert back to the scheme you once were, Sala, Ryans, now Sorensen, to kind of let your defensive line read and react and let them go get the quarterback, don't have these design stunts in place for them like Wilkes wanted to integrate here, you're going to ask your guys to go win. You need to have deep edge rushers, a depth chart that has 4 or 5 guys that can go down there and get the quarterback. Like, sure, there is no promise of health. That's why you go get guys that have only been healthy in their career, like Leonard Floyd, like Jordan Elliott. And if he can stay healthy, you can get production from Yetur Gross-Matos, likely reaching the peak or entering the peak of his career with Chris Kocurek coaching him. I think they still need to add. I would go back and try to get Kevin Givens back. I would have loved to have Clelin Ferrell back. There's still room to grow, still room to improve, but by all means, through day 2 of free agency, which isn't even over yet, I mean, San Francisco, I think, is having themselves, I'll give them a B, because they're unfinished, but there is still room to improve. Like, we have people asking for, should the San Francisco 49ers go and trade for Justin Fields to give Brock Purdy competition? How is that your focus? Like, if this team, that Brock Purdy almost won the freaking MVP, and you want to bring in more quarterbacks, no, give me more edge rushers. Give me a linebacker like an Eric Kendricks. Go bring back Warren Burks, or go bring back somebody. Like, this team can add so much valuable depth to insulate, to give them a stronger, firmer foundation where if one of our stars go down, it's not going to be catastrophic. I think that's the goal this year. You can get younger. You can also get cheaper, valuable depth behind your stars. Guys are getting older. You have to be able to protect yourself once they're going to get hurt. Eric Armstead, for as great as he was, the last couple of seasons, was guaranteed to miss some time. Deebo Samuel has missed some time. Like Nick Bosa in 2020, that was his only kind of hurt season. He has missed some time. Hargrave has missed some time over his career. Hufanga, who knows what he's going to be. Greenlaw is going to be out for who knows how long. Like, you have to insulate and give yourself that firmer foundation to say, hey, we have some cushion in case someone goes down, but the players they're targeting are the ones that can already stay healthy themselves to avoid even more of that. I think San Francisco, it's not an A+, not even an A, but I'll take a B minus maybe off season through day 2. Than what other teams have done. Like, Dallas has made no moves. Dallas has arguably gotten worse. The Packers have gotten better, sure. I love what Green Bay's done. The Vikings have gotten better, sure. They got Sam Darnold playing quarterback. Okay. Like, the Bucs brought back Baker. Go look at San Francisco's schedule. The Dolphins have gotten worse. Like, some of their opponents have gotten worse. And in the NFC, the Lions have kind of remained the same. They haven't done too much. Like, the NFC is still open. It's improved. But what San Francisco has done, I think, adds value to them, and I think should give San Francisco fans hope that, hey, if all goes to plan, like we went to the Super Bowl, took one season off, and went to back-to-back NFC championship games. That's a tough route, but it's not like we haven't been knocking on heaven's door for the past 3 seasons. Like, it's tough to get back there, but I do think what they've done so far through 2 days, just 2 days of free agency, should give fans hope that, hey, we're still going to push to win the whole thing. I think Floyd indicates that. I think Gross-Matos gives you high hopes of what he could be. And I think Elliott isn't a big name, but I think he gives you like a baseline production level. Go bring back Givens. Go bring in some other pieces. This team, I think, is going to be fine. There's a whole draft in April. They can add 11 players. They have a first, second, and third round pick. There's a lot of things that can occur. Just sit back, relax, enjoy the show. And as always, Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave that review on the audio platforms. Tell me what you think of the Leonard Floyd, Yetur Gross-Matos, and Jordan Elliott signings. Do you agree with letting Sam Darnold, Javon Kinlaw, Clelin Ferrell walk out the door and head elsewhere? What do you make and how would you grade the San Francisco 49ers offseason through just 2 days of NFL free agency? And is there a player? Is there a position you think they should target? Is there a player you want to sign? Tell me in the comments below. You can DM me. You can at me on Twitter, which is at 49ers_access. You can DM me on Instagram or comment below on the post on Instagram, which is 49ers.access. And if you would love to, I'd really appreciate it. Use our promo code 49ersaccess, 49ERSACCESS at SeatGeek.com and save yourself $20 off your first purchase. Again, what do you make of the 49ers offseason so far? Tomorrow, the new league year begins. If you're listening to this on the audio platforms, it's today, Wednesday, March 13th. It is officially the new league season. We'll react to all the news upcoming, so stay tuned during the offseason free agency. All the shows are going to continue. React to all the things and break everything down with you on Twitter, on YouTube, on Facebook, wherever you watch and listen. Again, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave that review. And until their next signing, until they make the next splash, as always, stay faithful.